Repetition, compulsion. 1. We cannot explain the concept of the compulsion to repeat without first referring to the definition of another Freudian concept, that of drive. Before becoming a psychoanalytic concept, the word drive is derived from the Latin pulsio, designating the action of pushing. It was from 1905 that it was used by Freud, and it became a major concept of psychoanalytic doctrine, defined as an energetic charge which is at the source of the motor activity of the organism and of the unconscious psychic functioning of man. Well before Freud, the notion of drive was already present in the conceptions of mental illness, especially among German psychiatrists of the 19th century. Some authors already insisted on the central role of sexual drives, and anxiety was considered as the product of the dissatisfaction of drives. In the 3 essays on the theory of sexuality in 1905, Freud used the word drive for the first time. Then, in 1915, he gave a general definition. By drive, we can at first sight designate nothing other than the psychic representation of an endosomatic source of stimulations, flowing continuously, produced by sporadic and external excitations. The drive is therefore one of the concepts of the demarcation between the psychic and the somatic. For Freud, the sexual drive, different from the sexual instinct, is not reduced to sexual activities alone. With their goals and objects, it is a drive of which the libido constitutes the energy. From drive to repetition compulsion, Freud would later discover that in certain forms of pathology, we find ourselves in the presence of a withdrawal of the libido from external objects, and a return of this libido to the ego, which thus itself becomes an object of love. Subsequently, in 1920, in Beyond the Pleasure Principle, Freud established a new drive dualism opposing the life drives to the death drives. Hence the concept of the repetition compulsion, which Freud recognizes as having a demonic character, and he compares it to the tendency to aggression recognized by Adler in 1908. Nevertheless, according to E. Raudinesco and M. Plan, even if he did not develop all of its theoretical implications until 1920, in Beyond the Pleasure Principle, Sigmund Freud very early linked the ideas of compulsion and repetition to account for an unconscious process, and as such, uncontrollable, which forces the subject to reproduce sequences, acts, ideas, thoughts, or dreams, which were originally generators of suffering, and which have retained this painful character. The repetition compulsion comes from the drive field, of which it has the character of conservative insistence. Reminder: it is the same Freudian concept of repetition compulsion that constitutes the core of our thesis topic. According to Freud, repetition compulsion is the eternal return, the unconscious repetition of traumatic experiences of the past. The author links these symptoms in human beings to two opposing drive forces, the life drive and the death drive. The first is vital and contributes to creative progress, while the second aims at destruction, the annihilation of life and cultural progress. In accordance with the hypotheses that we have formulated to develop our reflection, it is the eternal return or the eternal repetition of the collective worry that allows the mutualization of individual violence to take action in a crowd. This is based on historical events likely to generate anxiety or identity crisis on a collective level. Whenever there is fear of the collapse of traditional institutions or of the social frameworks of memory, according to Mr. Halbwachs, there is the risk of the occurrence of collective violence. According to P. Ricoeur, the repetition compulsion would constitute the common symptom of situations of too much memory and/or not enough memory. According to our research, the two terms would be derived from the theory of Freud on the one hand and of P. Janet on the other hand. Towards the end of the 19th century, on the etiology of neuroses. For Freud, according to the study of P. Berchery on the genesis of Freudian concepts, the etiology of neurosis would reside in the excess of available energy on the psychic level, the entrop. In contrast to this Freudian hypothesis, P. Janet considered that neurosis would rather relate to the en moi that characterizes the dissociable personality. Finally, as P. Ricoeur demonstrated in the extract from his article that we have already cited, too much memory, or not enough memory, would be characterized by the same symptom, namely the compulsion to repeat. 872. Ibid. 3. Ibid. 4. Ibid. 5. Ibid. Page 874. 6. Ibid. 7. Ibid. Page 876. 8. Ibid. Page 913. 9. Freud S. 1930. Culture and Its Discontents. Paris, PUF. 2000. Page 64. 10. Berchery P. 1983. Text The Clinical Field of Unconscious Phenomena. Hysteria, 1886 to 1893. In Genesis of Freudian Concepts, The Foundations of the Clinic 2. Paris, Le Harmattan, 2004. Pages 199 to 220. 11. Ricoeur P. Article Can Forgiveness Heal? In Revue Esprit, March-April 1995, number 210, pages 77 to 82. 12. Freud S. 1920. Text Beyond the Pleasure Principle. In Complete Works 15, 1916-1920. Paris, PUF, 1996, pages 292 to 293.